Out on the dusty veld where the rumors run wild, folks scrolling their phones, getting all riled. Fake news creeping in like a jackal at night, misinformation howling under the moonlight. But don't you worry, partner, don't lose no sleep, 'cause there's a crew on the job digging down deep. Never fear, News 24 is here. Fact checkers riding herd 24/7, my dear. Running down the fakes hour after hour, dogged and determined they got the power. When in doubt, turn to South Africa's best premier truth seekers. They never rest, rooting out the truth time after time. Never fear, News 24 is here. Latest big scoop took them down to the mother city, Cape Town calling, where the ocean's so pretty. Video going viral, baboons in a pool, splashing and frolicking, breaking every rule. Is it A? No, that can't be real. Folks scratching their heads, baboons don't feel like swimming laps in some fancy backyard, but they called in the experts, tech wizards on guard. Scientists, videographers working overtime, and wouldn't you know it, the clip's genuine prime. Them Jackma fellas really do take a dip in Cape Town swimming pools, yep, that's the tip. Never fear, News 24 is here. Fact checkers on the case, crystal clear. Running down the fake, the myths and the diss. They never stop hunting, nothing they miss. When in doubt, turn to the premier crew. South Africa's watchdogs, seeing it through, rooting out the truth time after time. Never fear, News 24 is here. Now that the baboon mystery's all cleared up nice, they'll move right along, no need for advice. No time to dig into that, oh, follow the tale, or ask the ANC boys why they wail and wail about Trump's refugee plan being so racist. You see, when it opens the door for minorities free, now they'll keep chasing shadows that don't need a chase, while bigger stories sit right there and plays. Never fear, News 24 is here. Fact checkers forever, loud and sincere. 24/7, they're on the beat, guarding the truth in the digital heat. When in doubt, just give them a call. They'll prove the baboons are having a ball, rooting out the truth time after time. Never fear, News 24 is here. Never fear. Yeah, never fear, them baboons are real. And the fact checkers, well, they're keeping it real, or something like that. Sing it with a grin and a drawl, perfect for a campfire or a pickup truck radio.
The African National Congress calls on all South Africans to rise to this moment, to defend our sovereignty, which in the past months has been under attack. We have been painted as people who are engaged in genocide, and we say no. We have been painted as a people which, when we implement transformation laws in this country, it is said we are implementing racist laws. And we say no, especially coming from people who pose themselves as world policemen in the world, led by the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Stupid people should wear signs, neon bright, so we can find a way to dodge their tanglements, avoid their chaos more, say less. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Save me from your twisted line. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Nada, nada, don't waste your time. Politicians dance and spin, blatant lies with a practiced grin. Blame the moon, blame the stars, blame the traffic or faulty cars. You think they're 6, not 35, playing games to stay
Marvin Devine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. Folks concerned about my health and my welfare and how I'm doing, feeling ill or not. Well, I'm still a little cloggy, a little cloudy there. And the proof in the pudding is that I've started my program an hour early today. A little bit rushed this morning and thought I was behind schedule. And actually, because daylight savings time, which happened last week, and I've been broadcasting on time, my head got a little cloudy, and I thought I had to rush. So we have a smaller audience than we normally have. My apologies for that. Hopefully people can tune in a little bit later and catch the news. Notice the tulips now, man. They're pushing up through the freedom, just growing like crazy, especially the purple ones. They seem to be doing better. But I apologize for the early start, but this is Wednesdays with the Colonel, so we have Ronaldo coming up after this, but there'll be a short break in between unless we wind up running long, which is a distinct possibility. Also, when I tried to go live, things weren't quite working properly. Had a little problem here trying to go live and wound up restarting last night's broadcast, which is bizarre. Then I had to go delete it. So that would explain why it took about 4 minutes to get started. So my apologies for the late start. That's just cloudy head, I guess. Okay, there we go. So I've set it up so you get directed to Ronaldo now after this broadcast. Excuse me. So, what's the word, folks? When will the tulips bloom? Probably in a few more days. They got to grow up to their full height, then they bloom. Yeah, they are growing like bamboo. Must we send some telecom internet? For what? Hello, folks. Let's see who we got here. Some of the usual crowd. Your cats and their rabies shots. Petra Myberg, what's going on? There's Mark here. The whole ad hoc, yeah, the ad hoc committee. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We got a few things to talk about here. All right, well, rather than go through the greeting everybody there, Andreas Miller, welcome to you. Anyway, folks, yeah, thanks. By the way, I did say I was going to look at my PayPal and see if somebody sent me PayPal. I had seen a couple PayPals in there, which I was surprised. Thank you for that. The two folks who did send me a PayPal, I do appreciate that. Let's take a quick gander here and look at my PayPal. Nope, nothing since the last one. Cool beans. Why do I have pounds? It says I have pounds in my account. I didn't know I could maintain pounds. If I knew that, I would keep currency in there, different currency. Planted some tulips last year as well. Hopefully they'll grow and bloom. Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of tulips. Yep, good stuff. Karen says, no need to apologize. You're here for us pretty much like clockwork. At least we can do is wait patiently. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that, Karen. It's very kind of you. Mad Hatter Tea Party. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. Well, torture allegations against Nkwenazi. This whole ad hoc committee has become a farce. It's a complete joke. Between the way they treated Paul O'Sullivan and the way they're behaving, this is like a Judicial Service Commission, not about getting to the best result. It's about grandstanding for political buffoons who couldn't hold a job at a McDonald's. These are people who couldn't be fry cooks at a McDonald's. They couldn't run the till at McDonald's. These South African politicians could not hold a job as a till operator at a McDonald's. Would you like fries with that burger? They wouldn't be able to do that. Yet they sit in Parliament and receive 2 million rand or so in salary to act like complete asses. This ad hoc committee is the biggest joke since the Pala Pala investigation in South Africa, which was no investigation. Let's take a look at what they're saying about Nkwenazi. Torture allegations against him are a total lie, he says. Testimony ongoing today. He was accused of torturing a sergeant who fled the country to Mozambique. Very strange indeed. What a joke this is. MK Party MP Sibono Nomvuno thanks Nkwenazi for his bravery on July 6th. bravery on July 6th. I'm sorry. Are we talking about the July 2021 insurrection? There was no bravery present by any police officers that we're aware of. They were absent without authorization on that day, providing no services. Neighborhoods had to defend themselves, and as a consequence, we saw an Indian die in prison who committed no crime because he didn't receive proper medical treatment from the abysmal prison system that South Africa was running at the time before Peter Groenewald took over responsibility for it. Folks, don't worry. It's all good. News 24 is on the scene. Yep. News 24 is on the scene. They are. Yep. We covered that last night. Instead of spending 5 seconds going to the SMC website to do an investigative journalism story about how the president, the ANC Secretary General, the Minister of Minerals, and the Foreign Minister habitually lie and spread disinformation about the U.S. refugee program, claiming it's an Afrikaner policy and it's for white farmers, all of them lying to the public over and over and over again. Instead of investigating that, the captured media in South Africa, News 24, or as we prefer to call them, Cockprot 24, are busy investigating the serious issues that affect South Africans. Ladies and gentlemen, not only have they spent dedicated hours and days in research, going to Florida, having people on the scene, getting the charge sheet from the officials who arrested the Mel and Pete Fillon. Not only have they done that, not only were they there and aware that they've been transferred to the Immigration Customs Enforcement and that poor old Pete found himself in alligator Alcatraz. Yes, not only are they on top of that story, ladies and gentlemen, but News 24 is on the scene. Rather than investigate the lies and disinformation coming out of Luthuli House, they are busy on the scene, investigating the most important stories in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you now the latest investigative journalism from the crack team at News 24. We go now to News 24. Baboons in a pool. How we proved the viral video isn't artificial intelligence and found the Cape Town house where it happened. Seriously? A viral video of baboons splashing in a suburban pool kept landing on News 24's disinformation desk inbox. Some claimed it was artificial intelligence, others placed it in the wrong part of Cape Town. We broke it down, frame by frame, followed the clues, and used only the video tracked the exact house and the person who filmed it. Oh, my goodness, this must be like the Twatter boss. Oh my gosh, another crack investigation. They tracked down an anonymous Twitter user who's saying truthful things about the government of South Africa. And so therefore we must silence him. So let's track him down and find him in the Western Cape so we can harass him and stand on his property and threaten him and then get his life endangered by exposing his anonymous name. Yes, the crack investigative journalists at News 24 are on the scene. Ladies and gentlemen, they are all over it. These are the people that we pay a fortune to. Well, we don't pay. Somebody pays them a fortune. Koos Becker pays them a fortune so that they can run these things down because you know what? This is the crack team that is at it. They are all over it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, News 24, these are the people that we must trust. We must trust News 24. Why? Because they have got it right. They have got it right. They are the people. News 24. That's the ones. I'm telling you.
They touched down in the Sunshine State where the plan's so grand.
Well,
thinking they'd be the royalty.
That's a boo-boo. That's the wrong one. This is the News 24 song. News 24, crack investigative team on the scene, investigating baboons swimming in a pool, the most important crisis affecting South Africa today.
Out on a dusty veld where the rumors run wild, folks scrolling their phones, getting all riled. Fake news creeping in like a jackal at night, misinformation howling under the moonlight. But don't you worry, partner, don't lose no sleep, cause there's a crew on the job digging down deep. Never fear, News 24 is here. Fact checkers riding herd 24/7, my dear, running down the fakes hour after hour, dogged and determined they got the power. When in doubt, turn to South Africa's best premier truth seekers. They never rest, rooting out the truth time after time. Never fear, News 24 is here.
Analyze it frame by frame.
Latest big scoop took them down down to the mother city, Cape Town, calling where the ocean's so pretty. Video going viral, baboons in a pool, splashing and frolicking, breaking every rule. Is it A? No, that can't be real. Folks scratching their heads, baboons don't feel like swimming laps in some fancy backyard, but they called in the experts, tech wizards on guard. Scientists, videographers working overtime, and wouldn't you know it, the clip's genuine prime. Them Jackma fellas really do take a dip in Cape Town swimming pools, yep, that's the tip. Never fear, News 24 is here, fact checkers on the case, crystal clear. Running down the fake, the myths and the diss, they never stop hunting, nothing they miss. When in doubt, turn to the premier crew, South Africa's watchdogs, seeing it through, rooting out the truth time after time. Never fear, News 24 is here. Now that the baboon mystery's all cleared up nice, they'll move right along, no need for advice, no time to dig into that. Oh, follow the tale, or ask the ANC boys why they wail and wail about Trump's refugee plan being so racist. You see, when it opens the door for minorities free, now they'll keep chasing shadows that don't need a chase, while bigger stories sit right there and play. Never fear, News 24 is here, fact checkers forever, loud and sincere, 24/7, they're on the beat, guarding the truth in the digital heat. When in doubt, just give them a call, they'll prove the baboons are having a ball, rooting out the truth time after time. Never fear, News 24 is here, never fear.
Yeah, Peter DeToy busy claiming they're not the mouthpiece for the ANC.
And the fact checkers, well, they're keeping it real or something like that. Singing with a grin and a drawl, perfect for a campfire or a pickup truck radio.
Yeah, never fear, folks. News 24 is here. Their investigative journalists are on the scene. Peter DeToy going to great lengths to claim that they are not a mouthpiece for the African National Congress. That's an unfair charge. Well, they're also not a serious media outlet. Again, where is investigative journalism into Pala Pala, the Lady R incident? Ooh, Oilgate, Travelgate, Kanla, the 2021 July ANC internal insurrection in which the crime intelligence, police intelligence, military intelligence were clueless, despite the fact that this intelligence analyst right here, 6,500 miles away, accurately predicted what was going to happen. What was going to happen in KwaZulu-Natal. I warned them. I told them to pre-position police. I told them to pre-position water cannons. I told them to pre-position ammunition. Zip ties. Yet they did nothing and let the country fall apart. This is a government that has no concept about what's going on or how to govern, and a media that has no concept of the truth. They have no idea what the role of the fourth estate is. Busy debunking baboon videos. Really? Baboon videos, baboons in a pool. That is the most important thing going on. Meanwhile, the Sandef is in the townships, and gangsters are still murdering people right around the corner from where the Sandef is. Indeed. At least we're focused on the important things, right? Like baboons swimming in a pool. I'm shocked that this story hasn't been turned into a racial story. Oh, it's racist. Somebody recorded baboons in a pool. That's racist. I'm not sure how that would be racist, but I'm sure it will be claimed that it's racist. You just wait and see. You'll just wait and see. These baboons will turn out to be a racial issue in South Africa. It's just a matter of time before the EFF launches in, how dare they show baboons? Yes, you wait and see. You wait and see, because those people equate black folks with primates. Well, we're all primates, but you get the point. Yep, just a matter of time. Carl Rasmus says, Mshlanga Commission, please report. Apologies, Colonel, to your viewers. Oh, Carl, well, you're 20 minutes late. I've already reported on the Mshlanga Commission. Where were you? We don't interrupt the broadcast because people tune in late and ask for special treatment. Carl, we've already covered that story back at the beginning. Well, apologies. I did say the ad hoc commission, not the Mshlanga Commission, so I stand corrected. Ramaphosa denies he had any role in the disbandment of the political killings task team. How scary is it the country has to have a political killings task team? That says all you need to know about the state of South Africa. The fact that South Africa must have a political killings task team. Now, we've had political attacks in America. Rand Paul was attacked. Gabby Giffords was attacked in Arizona. The people were murdered in Minnesota. But each of those, with the exception of Rand Paul, was not politically motivated. It was a personal motivation. The one of Rand Paul was politically motivated. But South Africa has to have a political killings task team. Things are so bad, and so many people have been assassinated in KwaZulu-Natal who are members of the ANC that they must form a task team. And then they disband it when they start to make traction, just like the Scorpions. When the Scorpions began to expose the corruption inside the ANC, they had to go away. President Cyril Ramaphosa has denied approving the disbandment of the political killings task team, stating under oath the decision was taken without his consent and fell within the operational authority of the police. In written responses to Parliament, hey, can get the president under oath about Pala Pala and $580,000? Now, why is it the president can go and speak under oath on this, but he can't speak under oath about Pala Pala, $580,000, alleged torture and illegal extradition of Namibians for torture? Misuse of the police, the perversion of the means of justice, and the lies by the SAPs that not a single VIP residence had a single incident during that fiscal year. Why can't we get President Cyril Ramaphosa under oath to explain to us where the $580,000 came from, where it's at, why it evaded customs and SARS and immigration, and how he is able to import $580,000 in U.S. currency into America, but you can't do it, I can't do it, it's a crime. Could we get the president under oath to talk about that? I'd like to hear that. Where is News 24's crack investigative journalism team, their fact checkers about this story? Anybody know? And before anybody says, no, Chris, you're wrong, this was already resolved. Parliament absolved President Ramaphosa of any wrongdoing. No. Parliament, a whitewashed parliament, under complete control of the ANC, decided that he did not violate parliamentary ethics. Remember, he's a member of parliament. But the thing is, he did violate parliamentary ethics. That's a joke in and of itself. Cutman's curse says he can't speak under oath because he's guilty. Well, maybe. I don't know. Until he speaks under oath, we don't know. Well, I've told you one of the problems with South Africa's economy is it's a haven for illicit financial transactions, whether they're support for terrorists or money laundering. Well, News 24 has the story that talks exactly about that today. Nicole McCain says South Africa's hidden scam economy, small teams in luxury homes, hotels drive global fraud networks. South Africa has emerged as a key hub in the global scam economy worth more than 16 trillion rand a year, according to a report. That's nearly 1 trillion rand, or $1 trillion. Criminal networks largely linked to Nigerian syndicates are running discrete operations from houses, apartments, and hotels in Johannesburg and Cape Town. Scams have become more sophisticated and harder to detect, with funds routed through local bank accounts and moved abroad within minutes. The global scam economy is worth more than $1 trillion a year, and South Africa has been identified as a key operational hub. What looks like ordinary houses in South Africa may in reality be nerve centers for international fraud networks. A report by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime shows South Africa has quietly become one of the world's most important bases for online scams. As I've told you for the past 6 years in a public forum, South Africa has long been a major terrorism financing hub, as well as an illicit money transfer and, money laundering hub. We've known this. Logistical base for terrorists who use South Africa quietly because the South African authorities leave them alone. And that's why they went on the gray list. They recently come off the gray list, but I think that was for political means. They didn't actually really clear the hurdles that they were supposed to. Last year, more than half of adults worldwide experienced a scam with losses totaling more than double South Africa's entire economy, according to the report. Unlike sprawling scam compounds seen in parts of Asia, South Africa's operations are far more discreet. Most are run from upmarket houses, apartments, or even hotel rooms, often in secure estates with controlled access and surveillance. They often function as small teams of only a few people but are tightly linked into global networks. It's almost like playing a game of whack-a-mole. You close one immediately and somewhere else another one pops up. That's not to say that law enforcement action isn't incredibly important, but it needs to be coupled with other measures that actually look at the broader drivers and enablers. I think what we just need is a team of beekeepers. All we need is a couple dozen Jason Statham's, and we can solve this fraud. For those of you who watch the Beekeeper movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Former impeached Western Cape Justice John Schlope, disgraced and removed from leadership of the MK party, has been restored. You can't make this stuff up. Former Judge John Schlope returns as the Mkhonto weSizwe Party parliamentary leader. Seriously? Former Western Cape High Court Judge John Schlope has made a sensational return. He's not a former Western Cape High Judge. He's a former and impeached Western Cape High Court Judge. He was expected to return as the party's first deputy secretary and as leader in Parliament this Thursday. The letter dated 18 March was written by newly appointed Secretary General Sibonolo Nomvalo. Wow, News 24 was also alerted to his return by two other sources. Back in November, he was suspended by Jacob Zuma. As stated above, the president convened a bilateral meeting with Dr. Schlope, was he a doctor of bullshit, during which all the allegations were vented at length, and thereafter decided to immediately reinstate him as both first deputy president and parliamentary party leader. Wow, there is no shame in South Africa's politics. Screw up and move up. The Land Reform Minister has dissolved the Inganyoma Trust Board because they couldn't get a quorum. Circumstances at the entity have created a governance position that is no longer sustainable, says Nyonso. Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development, Zwanele Nyonsa, has dissolved the Inganyoma Trust Board. He claims the circumstances created a situation that's untenable. He explained the administrative regulations issued on the same act require 5 members of the accounting authority constitute a quorum for a meeting of the board. But they didn't have 5 members, only 4 board members, including the king. I've taken this view, having in regard to the current composition of the board and practical difficulty of ensuring stable and effective governance under the present arrangements and the need to ensure continuity in the lawful administration of the trust and management of trust land for the benefit of the communities with whom this land is held in such trust. Oh, wow, that's a mouthful. Basically, they're going to steal the land now. Who knows? Who knows? Who cares? More expropriation? The Inganyoma Trust controls 2.8 million hectares of prime farmland in KwaZulu-Natal province, under the control of the South African king. Cranberry likes my pronunciation. Are you talking about Judge Schlope? Yeah. South Africa has named a new ambassador. No, not to Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen, but to China. China has a new South African ambassador. Yes, that's right, folks. And there she is. Current ambassador to Turkey. Not appointed ambassador to the U.S., but there is one to China. After years, we'll finally appoint top diplomats to its embassies in China and the U.S. Yes, former State Security Minister Dupuo Letsatsi Duba will be posted as South Africa's ambassador to China. And a career diplomat, Thabo Tagi, a former ambassador himself, will be posted to Washington, D.C. to run the building as a charge d'affaires. Here's the funny thing, though, folks. There's already a charge d'affaires there. You must appoint someone. I don't know how South Africa's diplomatic corps works things, but normal diplomatic corps, when the ambassador, plenipotentiary, and extraordinary is not present, someone who's senior, normally senior, using the most senior, but not always, is appointed the charge d'affaires to represent and operate the embassy. They don't have the same power as an ambassador, but they can be received by the host nation. There is a charge d'affaires. For instance, the United States had a charge d'affaires, a diplomat from Nigeria who went to Pretoria and served in that role until Ambassador Bozell got his accreditation from DERCO. So there's already a charge d'affaires in Washington, presumably. Why are we sending this guy and not an ambassador? You have to ask yourself that question. No, the charge who's in the position, charge d'affaires is a temporary position. It's meant to be. It's only an appointment, usually done in a memorandum stating, or diplomatic note stating this person is charge d'affaires, and you send it to the host nation foreign ministry to let them know that this person is acting charge d'affaires in the absence of the ambassador. For instance, an ambassador is recalled to Washington for a conference, or goes to another country for a conference, or goes abroad for medical treatment, and a charge d'affaires would be appointed. That's how it works. So, Nandlam Kwanazi says that, well, he didn't say, he's been reappointed for 5 years, despite the claims that he tortured people. Yes, of course, I doubt he tortured anybody. KZN Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nandlam Kwanazi will continue his leadership role in the province as his contract has been renewed for further 5 years. Kwanazi will be the police commissioner in KZN province for an additional 5 years now, according to this news report. Senegal is upset, ladies and gentlemen. Senegal is very upset. Yes, indeed, they are upset because they've been stripped of their African Confederation Cup. Oh, no. Well, because of their behavior on the pitch. We covered the story as it unfolded. Senegal's government calls the investigation an unjustified AFCON decision. Actually, it follows the rules. The Senegalese should have followed the rules. Senegal's call for an independent investigation of the Confederation of African Football after being stripped of their Africa Cup of Nations title. CAF awarded the final to Morocco after ruling that Senegal forfeited the match for leaving the pitch during the game. Senegal's federation plans to appeal to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, calling the decision unjust and damaging to African football. Well, if that's the case, then I would like to appeal the netball decision, which stripped a team of their semifinal victory 6 years ago under racist conditions imposed by South Africa's ANC because they didn't have enough white players on the court. Remember that? Remember that netball decision? I would like that to go to the arbitration for unjust stripping. Yes, well, if we're going to do this, let's do that. By calling into question a result achieved at the end of the match that was properly played and won in accordance with the rules of the game, CAF seriously undermines its own credibility, says government spokesman Marie-Rose Kadi Fatou Faye. Senegal unequivocally rejects this unjustified attempt at dispossession. Yeah, but the problem is that you can't follow the rules. Your players refused to finish the game, and they create a situation in which the goalie was unprepared, or the kicker was unprepared, and he had to wait and had too much time to think about it, and as a consequence, did not score. So you stole a victory against Morocco, and therefore you should be stripped of your title. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Oh, yeah, Cranberry. Oh, yeah, I covered that. It's on my original channel. A netball semifinal, and it's important because these girls are competing for scholarships. They're also competing for, to play professionally in Australia or in the UK, and where they can make a living playing netball. Semifinal team, you have to have 2 white players on the court at all time, apparently. I think that was a number. And one of the white players was injured, so a black player filled in for her for a few minutes while she was getting treatment, and apparently it was too long. And so after the game in which they won, all excited, jumping up and down on the court, going to the final, they were stripped by Vodacom netball tournament of their semifinal victory, and it was handed to the other team that did not legitimately win it because too many black players were on the court. This shows you how stupid these racist laws are in South Africa. So they lost because too many black players were playing. If we use that rule, the NBA would shut down. Blacks represent 13% of America's population, yet they represent 78% of the NBA players. If that were the rule, there would be no National Basketball Association. We'd have to shut down every single franchise because not enough white players are playing. You see how stupid this racist bullshit is? Yeah, you didn't know that about netball? Oh, yeah. I'm a big netball fan. Yep. I love the skirts. Belgium orders a former diplomat and a member of the nobility to stand trial for the murder of Patrice Lumumba. The trial marks the first prosecution linked to Patrice Lumumba's murder, with Davignon accused of war crimes, including the unlawful detention and degrading treatment of Lumumba. War crimes. The problem with this allegation is there was no war. There was no war. Belgium wasn't involved in a war. So how can there be a war crime? Count Etienne Davignon, Brussels court on Tuesday ordered former high-profile Belgian diplomat to stand trial over the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, the first prime minister of Congo, in a final attempt to shed light on the still murky circumstances surrounding his murder. It's not murky. Congolese murdered him. His Congolese competition murdered him. Lumumba, who became prime minister of the country now called the Democratic Republic of Congo upon its independence from Belgium in 1960, was ousted from power just months later and killed by Belgian-backed secessionist rebels on January 16, 1961. A Belgian parliamentary investigation into the killing concluded in 2002 that Belgium was morally responsible for his death. But the trial of 93-year-old Count Etienne Davignon, a former EU commissioner who was a junior diplomat at the time, constitutes the first prosecution related to the murder. They accuse him of war crimes, even though there was no war, participated in the unlawful detention and transfer of Lumumba, and deprived him of his right to an impartial trial. I'm sorry, he had no right to an impartial trial. Is that what the law said in the Congo? This is a man who murdered thousands of innocent Congolese, sending his ridiculous army in to murder them. This is a man who's responsible for the carnage and the consumption of human flesh by cannibals after they murdered white missionaries and white residents of the Belgian Congo. Patrice Lumumba is not a person who deserves our empathy or respect. He was a murderous, arrogant asshat of a thug, despite Hollywood efforts and European film industries to paint him as some sort of hero. Patrice Lumumba was a nasty, murderous son of a bitch, and he deserves no empathy. He was murdered by Congolese. And to try a 93-year-old Belgian over something that 24 years ago found no guilt for him, this is just gratuitous. He's also accused of involvement in the murders of two of Lumumba's political allies, Maurice Mpolo and Joseph Okita. All other suspects in the case have died. Though his government lasted just 3 months, Lumumba became an anti-colonial icon as African nations pushed for independence from their European masters in the 1960s. He remains a folk hero even today. His murder marked a dark turn for Congo, which boasts marked a dark turn. That son of a bitch rounded up and murdered people by the thousands. By the thousands. The dark turn was formed by this former Coca-Cola employee acting as if he knew what the hell he was doing and letting these people run ramrod over the Congolese, murdering them by the thousands. Though he publicly professes neutrality, his overtures to the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War alarmed governments in the West, and some historians have accused the CIA of his involvement. There's no evidence whatsoever, and never has been, of any CIA involvement. There is evidence the Belgians did turn him over because Belgian pilots, when he was captured, flew him to his ultimate murderers. Yep. It's a step in the right direction, Lumumba's granddaughter, Yema Lumumba, told Reuters. What we want is to search for the truth and establish different responsibilities. Well, what I would like is for a search for the truth about the murderous, blood-curdling desires of Patrice Lumumba in murdering innocent Congolese villagers who actually supported his inept government. That's what I would like to see. Davignon was elevated to the rank of Count by Belgium's King Philippe back in 2018. Yeah. Gulf states want the U.S. to cripple Iran's regime before ending the war. This objective report in the Wall Street Journal is one of the few honest news reports out there about the Iran war. Other reports keep saying that the allies in the region want the U.S. to end the war. This one's telling the truth. Battered by Iranian strikes and disruption of the Strait of Hormuz, the United Arab Emirates and some fellow Persian Gulf states have come to view Iran's theocracy as an existential threat. They already knew that. They now want the regime that once courted to be neutered, if not dismantled, when the conflict ends, so the ordeal is never repeated. UAE has borne the brunt of the Iranian attacks. More than 2,000 drones and missiles have fired at the country since the U.S. and Israel launched their attack on February 28th. 80% of those were aimed at civilian infrastructure, including oil facilities, refineries, airports, ports, hotels, and data centers, killing 6 civilians and injuring 157 others. As I said, Iran is committing crimes against humanity and war crimes, attacking civilian targets in neutral countries. These are criminals and should be treated as such. Iran's ambassador to South Africa, who is yet to be demarched for his embassy's undiplomatic, unpalatable conduct on its X account. Yes, Iran's ambassador to South Africa warns of far-reaching global consequences, says this is a legitimate act of self-defense. What? Attacking innocent civilians, committing war crimes? African National Congress, Fikile Mabalula, what do you have to say about this? What does Fikile have to say about Iran's crimes against humanity? Let's go now to Fikile Mabalula. We should listen to what Fikile has to say. I mean, after all, he's an expert on this, right? Let's listen to what Fikile has to say.
The African National Congress calls on all South Africans to rise to this moment.
Yes, rise.
To defend our sovereignty.
Why?
Which in the past months has been under attack. We have been painted as people who are engaged in genocide, and we say no. We have been painted as a people which, when we implement transformation laws in this country, it is said we are implementing racist laws. And we say no, especially coming from
we say yes.
People who pose themselves as world policemen in the world, led by the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Stupid people should wear signs, neon bright, so we can find a way to dodge their entanglements, avoid their chaos more, say less. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Save me from your twisted line. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Nada, nada, don't waste your time.
Yep. Fikile Mabalula, that's what he has to say on the matter. We've listened now into Fikile Mabalula. African National Congress, where are your demarches for the Iranian ambassador in South Africa for his unpalatable, repulsive, disgusting, vile, undiplomatic conduct? His embassy posting coffins floating in the Strait of Hormuz, draped in U.S. flags. Where is the demarche for Iran? Where is the demarche for Iran? Why are you not demarching the Iranian ambassador? People that can't see through this are really stupid. Really stupid. Yeah. Israel says that it has killed Iran's intel minister. The Israeli military said today that it had killed Ismail Khatib in an airstrike. Iran confirmed the killing. Ismail Khatib, the Iranian intelligence minister, became the country's latest high-ranking official to be targeted in the U.S.-Israeli military campaign. Israel's military said today they killed Mr. Khatib in an overnight airstrike. The Iranian president, Peshkinan, confirmed the killing in a social media post later in the day, calling it a cowardly assassination. Cowardly. The man is responsible for the murder of innocent civilians. Well, how is it cowardly? He met an end he deserved. Israel strikes Iran's massive natural gas facility. Ooh, that's not good. The Israeli Air Force struck Iran's South Pars natural gas processing facility, the largest in the world, Wednesday, in the first attack of its kind since the war began. The attack targeted phases 3 to 6 of the plant's facilities, according to Iranian state media, which could jar gas production. Iranian officials said plant workers shut down the phases to stop blazes after the strikes. The Israeli attacks also hit Iranian oil and petrochemical facilities near Azluway. Iran blamed Israel and the U.S. for the bombing and vowed to intensify attacks against oil and gas infrastructure across the region, specifically threatening Saudi Arabia's Samref refinery and Jubel petrochemical complex. The South Pars facility, which Iran shares with Qatar, supplies nearly 70% of Iran's domestic natural gas. Well, that's not good. Russia is reportedly supplying Iran with satellite imagery and drone technology, leading to the death of U.S. service members. Russia will regret these actions. They will regret these actions. To be fair, the incompetent, brain-dead, moronic Joseph Biden supplied Ukraine with weapons, which led to the death of Russian soldiers. So I can understand, empathize with the Russian position, but it does not justify murdering my colleagues because you empathize with the Iranian theocratic murderers. Ali Lajarani was a true insider in the Iranian regime's public face. Well, CNN claims that this will prolong the war. Somehow I doubt that. These hardliners were not going to change. Iran announces arrests, rarely get more innocent civilians, claiming Israel and U.S. are suffering defeats. Yet they cannot prove a single defeat other than fake AI-generated videos. Hundreds have been arrested as Iran cracks down on traitors following the killing of Lajarani and Soleimani. Iranian authorities have announced hundreds more arrests across the country, as well as operations countering what they describe as traitors aligned with the interests of the United States and Israel. Ministry of Intelligence, whose minister just died, said in a statement that 111 pro-monarchy cells in 26 of the 31 provinces were stopped overnight into Wednesday from launching acts opposing the country's theocratic establishment at the top of the U.S.-backed monarchy in 1979 revolution. The fact that in 26 of the 31 provinces they have pro-monarchy cells operating tells you an awful lot about how unpopular these bloodthirsty killers are in Iran that run the country. How China is quietly helping an isolated Iran survive. Well, this is interesting news from the Wall Street Journal. They say they're buying oil and selling rocket parts. But how are the parts getting there? There are no flights. There are no ships. So how exactly, Wall Street Journal, are they getting rocket parts there? Are they using a transporter from the USS, the Starship Enterprise, the NSS Enterprise? Since the U.S. and Israeli militaries began strike last month, Beijing has offered Tehran limited public support, condemning the killing of Iranian leadership while calling all sides to stop fighting. Here's a look at how they've sustained them. China is Iran's most important economic partner. 90% of Iran's 1.6 million barrels a day of crude oil are sold to China, providing Tehran with the equivalent of tens of billions of dollars every year. So how are they getting oil? It's not. The crude is mostly bought by small independent Chinese refineries, but the problem is that nothing's going through the Straits. So how? Shadow banking. Iran managed a complex clandestine shadow banking network. Weapons and rocket fuel. China was once an important supplier of arms Iran during its war with Iraq in the 1980s, but it ceased approving weapons deals shortly before Beijing joined the UN sanctions on Iran in 2007. But according to U.S. officials, Chinese companies continue, however, to be a critical supplier of goods for potential military applications. Last year, see, this is nonsense. How China is helping isolate Iran survive. This is all past activity. None of that's current. See, is this journalism? Austin Ramsey and Roy Jones? That's not real. Stop it. Well, Venezuela has something to cheer about. They beat the United States, not over the extradition of Nicolas Maduro, but in baseball. Venezuelans at home and abroad celebrated victory of the heavily favored U.S. team as a moment of national pride. They were on their feet long before the final out was recorded. Beer sloshing, tricolor flags unfurling, voices cracking, not just for Tuesday night's baseball game in Colombia. Venezuela's national team defeated the powerful U.S. squad in Miami 3-2 in the final of the World Baseball Classic. And for a moment, Venezuelans savored the taste of triumph. This is historic, said Pedro Mendoza, a Venezuelan migrant in Bogota, as he jumped with friends and celebrated his country's first championship in the tournament. Doing the world stage is an incredible feeling, and against the U.S., it's priceless. Somehow, I don't think most Americans even know that this World Classic of Baseball is going on, but congratulations to Venezuela on their victory. Airlines are canceling Middle Eastern routes as Iran conflict continues to rattle the Middle East. Global air travel remained severely disrupted March 17th after the war in Iran forced the closure of restriction of major Middle Eastern aviation hubs, including Dubai, Doha, and Abu Dhabi. Air Canada said on March 13th statements that flights to Dubai were canceled through April 30th and to Tel Aviv through May 2nd. Delta Airlines warned that travel to or from Tel Aviv could be affected through April 30th. El Al said regular flights are canceled until March 21st. Not looking good in the Middle East for flights. Ukraine and the United Kingdom have signed a deal to manufacture and supply drone technology. 4 years into the war, Kiev has rapidly developed expertise in drone and anti-drone technologies that have become vital tools on the front. At a meeting in London, British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, the pro-Muslim man, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky agreed to strengthen their partnership in these areas to address critical gaps in their air defense capabilities in Ukraine, UK, and broader Euro-Atlantic area. Well, the Irish Prime Minister keeps his yap shut in a meeting with Trump as Trump bashes European leaders. Smart move there by Michael Martin. Michael Martin, the Taoiseach of Ireland, attempted to steer clear of discussing the Iran conflict and trade tensions at the White House meeting with Trump. Ireland's equivalent of Prime Minister was the first foreign leader to visit Mr. Trump since the Iran war began and did not seek to frustrate Trump. Mr. Martin's visit was part of a St. Patrick's tradition dating back to 1952, in which the Irish leader highlights the friendship between the countries by traveling to America. He and Trump visited the capital for a luncheon with lawmakers participating in the annual Shamrock Bowl presentation. The Irish leader treaded carefully, even as Trump bashed America's NATO allies for the lack of support. Ireland is not a NATO member. Rather than taking a side, Martin simply expressed hope the U.S. and European allies could resolve their differences. We've had issues over the last year, but we settled them, Mr. Martin said. Although Ireland's government is not directly condemning the attacks, Mr. Martin has been under tremendous political pressure from his opponents at home to say the U.S. attacks breached international law. Yep. You cannot have a rogue state with a nuclear weapon or the capacity of nuclear weapons. Iran was a sponsor of terrorism. The Irish position has always been ultimately, can we resolve this? Can we get to peace? Smartly said. Mr. Martin deftly moved through that political minefield. Smart move on his part. Well, a new chief executive officer of the world's largest mining company, BHP, the big Australian is getting a new boss. Brendan Craig will become the chief executive of BHP on July 1st, replacing Mike Henry, who will step down for 6.5 years in the role. Craig is currently BHP's president for the Americas, leading its growth strategy in future-facing commodities across Canada, the United States, and South America. He previously led BHP's Western Australian iron ore business, crediting him on Wednesday with improving operational margins. It's an honor and privilege to succeed Mike Henry as CEO of BHP. He's been with BHP since 1999. He'll receive a base salary of $1.9 million with potential bonuses, making it up to $12.5 million a year if he reaches those bonuses. Well, congratulations to Mr. Craig. Going to be making a lot of coin there. Peru's prime minister has resigned ahead of congressional confirmation vote. Peru's prime minister resigned Tuesday ahead of mandatory vote in the nation's Congress, where she needed a majority of legislators to confirm her recent appointment. Denise Morales was appointed as prime minister in late February after interim president Jose Jerry was removed from his post following corruption allegations and replaced by Congressman Jose Maria Balcazar. In Peru, prime ministers coordinate the implementation of government policies, but they are not elected in office and do not lead the executive branch, which is headed by the president. Morales, a former economy minister under Jerry, did not say why she resigned. However, she informed journalists that she was uncertain she could secure the congressional majority required for her confirmation on Wednesday. If no candidate gets more than 50% of the votes, there'll be a runoff in June between the top two contenders. Peru has seen 8 presidents in the past decade, with several heads of state removed by Congress after corruption allegations. Despite the revolving door presence, Peru's economy has been stable over the past decade, with governments sticking to orthodox economic policies that include modest fiscal spending, while international companies have been encouraged to invest in areas like mining and infrastructure. Peru, despite its government, is succeeding. That's interesting. Marco Rubio calls for dramatic change in Cuban leadership amid nationwide blackout. Cuba has an economy that doesn't work and a political and government system that can't fix it, says Marco Rubio. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called on Tuesday for dramatic change within the Cuban communist regime following its third nationwide blackout in 4 months. His comments come amid heightened tensions with the communist regime and after President Trump floated the possibility of taking over the country. Although Cuba, which is less than 100 miles from the nearest point in Florida, generates 40% of its petroleum and produces its own power, it hasn't been enough to meet domestic demand as the nation's electrical grid continues to crumble. Well, Marco Rubio calling Cuba out. Of course, he's a Cuban American. Trump muses about taking over Cuba as the island's power grid collapses after weeks of U.S. oil blockade. U.S. President Trump mused over whether he would have the honor of taking Cuba the same day the communist-run island's electricity grid suffered its first nationwide collapse on Monday since the U.S. shut off the flow of oil. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States have the honor of taking Cuba? That's a big honor, Trump said in the Oval Office. Taking Cuba in some form. Yeah, taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I can do anything I want with it. That is not helpful. Such rhetoric is not helpful, President Trump. Even joking around. Well, the Senate launches a bitter fight on the floor for the SAVE Act to save America's elections from corruption by the Democrats. Republican-led Senate voted Tuesday to open what is likely to be a lengthy, rancorous floor fight over a bill to implement strict voter identification requirements in federal elections. They're not strict. They simply require people to show identification at the polling station and to prove you're an American when you register to vote. That's not strict. That's simply common sense. There's no strictness there. The Save America Act, which would require proof of citizenship to register to vote and a photo ID to cast a ballot, is backed by nearly every Republican. Still, it lacks Democratic support to clear a 60-vote threshold needed to cut off debate and vote on final passage, which means debate is likely to drag on for days with no predetermined end time. Republicans have little choice but to bring the measure on the floor thanks to intense pressure from Trump, who said the bill is his top legislative priority. The Senate voted along party lines 51-48 to move the bill to the floor for a debate that could last week. So that's not party lines. There's 53 Republicans. So what happened to the other two? Senate Majority Leader John Thune defended bringing the bill to the floor, even though it could take 2 weeks to floor time and is all but certain to be defeated by a Democratic filibuster. Not if they actually force the Democrats to adhere to filibuster rules instead of simply saying, I filibuster. That's not how filibuster works. You have to get up and speak. You have the floor and you don't give it up. When you give it up, then it goes to a vote. And the violation of the filibuster rule by Democrats for years has led to sclerosis in our legislative process. If you want to use the filibuster, use it properly. Otherwise, get rid of it. Yep. U.S. Airlines CEOs urge Congress to end the partial government shutdown in a joint letter. 50,000 TSA workers are working without pay at airports, and people are waiting as long as 3 hours to be screened because there are not enough employees. Amazon plans to cut drastically its shipments to the U.S. Postal Service now that it's built its own delivery network. It wants to reduce its postal volume by at least 2/3 by this fall. That will be devastating for the U.S. postal system, which has relied heavily on the revenue that comes in from Amazon for delivering packages. Of course, much of that's done at a loss, but at least it's revenue because Amazon negotiated a brilliant contract with the Postal Service, which forced them to deliver packages over the weekend. The Postal Service had never worked on Sundays, but it forced them to do that. So it's unclear what will happen here. The e-commerce giant, long the Postal Service's biggest customer, has already begun ratcheting down its postal volume and wants to reduce it by at least 2/3 by this fall when its current contract expires. The United States Postal Service delivered more than 1 billion packages for Amazon last year, close to 15% of all the packages Postal Service delivered in the country. Amazon's guaranteed volumes have been a source of stability for the agency, which has operated a loss for most of the past 2 decades. In fiscal 2025, it reported a net loss of $9 billion. The Postal Service expanded its parcel delivery capacity in recent years, building bigger facilities and buying new machines to process boxes, which replace aging equipment that focused on letter mail. If the decline in volumes for Amazon isn't adequately managed, new equipment and facilities can end up being underutilized. Yep. This could be a problem. Amazon's existing contract with the Postal Service expires in October. Not looking good here, folks. Not looking good. The Postal Service currently delivers about 15% of all Amazon packages. And if you go to rural areas, that's 30 to 40% of all of Amazon's packages. The Postal Service's losses stem in part from its mandate to deliver more than 170 million addresses 6 days a week. The 6-day-a-week statutory obligation leads to 71% delivery routes being financially underwater. Roughly 3 in 5 post offices don't cover the cost of operations. So, will the Postal Service go under, or will we continue to subsidize it? Rand Paul takes his personal dispute with a nominee for Department of Homeland Security to the floor. Rand Paul lashes out at Trump's DHS nominee, says Markwayne Mullin is a man with anger issues. Senator Rand Paul unloaded on fellow Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin, calling him a man with anger issues since saying his combatives makes him a questionable choice to become Secretary of the Homeland Security. Mr. Paul, who suffered a vicious attack by a neighbor in 2017 that left him with 6 broken ribs and years of complications, said he was shocked by Mr. Mullin's comments earlier this year when he called Mr. Paul a freaking snake and said he understands completely why the senator was beaten. I just wonder if someone who applauds violence against his political opponents is the right person to lead an agency that has struggled with limits to the proper use of force. Mr. Paul also said Mr. Mullin, Oklahoma Republican, told a lie when he said he personally confronted Mr. Paul over the attack. Well, this juvenile Sweet Valley High nonsense between two Republicans needs to stop. Tesla and LG bet big on U.S. batteries with a $4.3 billion Michigan plant. Tesla needs tariff-free cells for its fast-growing energy storage business. LG Energy Solution, the battery unit of Korean electronics giant LG, said it would produce battery cells for Tesla's fast-growing energy storage business at a new factory in Lansing, Michigan. Those cells will eventually power utilities and artificial intelligence data centers. LG once planned to make batteries for GM's EVs at the factory, but as the automaker pulled back from its electric ambitions, it sold its stake in the venture to LG last year. The new $4.3 billion LG-Tesla tie-up was part of Trump's administration's announcement on Tuesday, among dozens of other deals, as part of energy dominance agenda. American-made cells will power Tesla's Megapack 3 energy storage systems produced in Houston, creating a robust domestic battery supply chain. That's what they claim. We shall see. Electric vehicle plants, battery plants have been shutting down left and right. Plans have gone astray because the green energy scam is exactly that, a scam. These things are not profitable. They can't be made at a profit unless they're subsidized, and therefore it's a scam. Trump administration seeks alternative fertilizer supplies. The White House economic advisor said talks with Venezuela and Morocco to shield farmers from shortages ahead of the planting season. Trump administration is working on securing alternative fertilizer supplies as for U.S. farmers as conflict with Iran threatens shipping through the Gulf. We put established license for Venezuela to produce more fertilizer. We've had discussions with Morocco, which has a large reserve of potash anywhere on Earth. Fertilizer is critical for crop yields and global food supply. Most fertilizers contain nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the 3 primary nutrients needed for plant growth. Because of its importance, fertilizer supply disruptions can ripple through food systems. Indeed, they can, and lead to shortages. That's a fact, Jack. That is a fact. Well, a House panel will subpoena current Attorney General Pam Bondi. Committee orders Attorney General to appear on April 14th. The Department of Justice says subpoena is unnecessary. The House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed Attorney General Pam Bondi as part of a probe of the Justice Department's investigation into deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, ordering her to testify on April 14th. If she honors the subpoena, she would face committee members' questions in a closed-door session that could turn contentious given the volatile nature of the Epstein case and Bondi's demonstrated willingness to engage lawmakers in verbal combat. Subpoena is completely unnecessary, said a Justice Department spokesman. Lawmakers have been invited to view the unredacted files for themselves at the Department of Justice, and the Attorney General has always made herself available to speak directly with members of Congress. But of course, this is just grandstanding by members of Congress who are looking for attention and votes before the November election. That's all this is. There's nothing to be gained by this. NASA has confirmed a meteor was spotted and exploded and disintegrated over Ohio, folks. There's footage taken from the National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh of a meteor disintegrating over Ohio. The fireball, caused by a small asteroid nearly 6 feet in diameter, weighing about 7 tons, moved southeast at 45,000 miles per hour before fragmenting over Valley City. The fragments continued on to the south, producing meteorites in the vicinity of Medina County, Ohio. 8:57 a.m. yesterday. That's pretty crazy. Well, the significance of Joe Kent's appointment and his resignation over the Iran war. Former Special Forces operator, failed congressional candidate, and an appointment by Donald Trump foolishly to be the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. The conservative movement's internal debate over the Iran war entered a new phase Tuesday with the first resignation of a prominent Trump appointee who criticized the war. In his resignation letter, National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent said he could not in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Kent implied the administration had lied about Iran, posing an imminent threat, and he claimed Israel had lured the United States into a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. Well, Kent has a highly imperfect messenger with a checkered past dating back to his failed campaigns. He also has completely changed his tune. Just 2-3 years ago was saying that Iran was an imminent threat and that Israel was a close ally and need to be defended. He's obviously a political hack. His wife was killed in an ISIS suicide bombing in 2019, yet he tarnishes her memory by betraying America with this nonsense. Joe Kent is a non-factor. The foolish decision by the Trump administration to appoint yet another treasonous betrayer in his administration harkens back to the first Trump administration, when the people selecting those in the administration made one dumbass decision after another. So who is Joe Kent and why did he resign? Well, he resigned because he is a turncoat. One of the top counterterrorism officials in the United States has resigned over his country's war against Iran. On Tuesday, he published a copy of his resignation letter on social media platform X addressing his correspondence to President Trump. Now, if he simply resigned out of good conscience, he wouldn't be posting on social media his resignation letter. That's inappropriate. That's a letter between the president and him, not for public consumption. He's a hack, and he had no business being at the National Counterterrorism Center. And once again, I fault the Trump administration's vetting process, picking these idiots who have no business being in the administration. Yet another one. Former political candidates face scrutiny over past connections to far-right activists. He's also spewed conspiracy theories. Why the Trump administration entertains people who spew conspiracy theories instead of learned, intelligent, decisive leaders beggars the imagination. I don't get it. Well, the Trump administration may have closed the southern border, but they're letting people in the front door by the thousands. Not as bad as Biden, but still bad. Trump closes the door. President Trump may have cooled the U.S.-Mexico border, but the latest data shows unauthorized immigrants are now surging into America's interior. Department of Homeland Security calls them inadmissibles. They show up at airports and seaports without fully valid paperwork. Their numbers have more than doubled in recent months, from 8,500 in August, September to more than 19,000 in January. Now, that's well below the peak of the Biden era, when more than 50,000 would show up every month and would just be let into the country. Analysts at the Transaction Records Access Clearinghouse said the surge coincides once again with a major jump in parole. When a non-citizen arrives at a port of entry, whether by air, sea, or land, and does not have a visa or the proper documents allowing them to enter the U.S., they are inadmissible. Port authorities need to decide how the person should be handled. Port authorities can put inadmissibles through expedited deportation, which is what all of them should go through, serve them notice of a longer deportation court battle, or parole them, which allows them to remain in the United States despite lacking a legal visa. The last option is now the most common. Parolees now comprise 61.5% of all inadmissibles. That means that in January, the Trump administration, which says it's against illegal immigration, its officials in January allowed criminal alien invaders, yes, criminal alien invaders to enter this country in large numbers. Unbelievable. 11,685 criminal illegal aliens arrived at our ports and were allowed to enter this country legally by this administration, which professes to be against illegal migration. Why is the Trump administration allowing criminal aliens to enter our country with no recourse? This needs to stop. Chief Justice John Roberts, who betrays the Constitution on a regular basis, says personal criticism of judges is dangerous and has to stop. No, it's not. You are a betrayer. You have betrayed the Constitution repeatedly. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts warned Tuesday that personal criticism of federal judges is dangerous. It's got to stop 2 days after President Trump called the federal judge who ruled the administration wacky, nasty, crooked, and totally out of control. Yeah. Criticism of judicial opinions comes with the territory and can be healthy, Roberts said at Rice University's Baker Institute of Public Policy. But it's different when the criticism moves away from legal analysis. Personally directed hostility is dangerous and it's got to stop. Well, we believe you're treasonous to America and you have an inability to adhere to the Constitution, and you pick decisions based on which way the political winds are blowing. So if that's personal, too bad. You should do your job as a justice. George Bush's worst decision wasn't Iraq. It was the appointment of John Roberts to the bench as Chief Justice. Trump's attempt to shutter Voice America has been declared illegal. The Trump administration's attempt to shut down the U.S. Agency for Global Media and boot the Voice America off the air was illegal, according to a federal judge. Judge Royce Lamberth, a Reagan appointee, said Congress created the organization's various networks, including the Voice America, and laid out some guidelines for how and when it would broadcast. He said the law gives the administration flexibility to determine how to run the operation, but it doesn't allow the administration the option of not running at all. While these statutes undoubtedly call for leadership's judgment regarding how to effectuate Congress's broadcasting directives, they have no discretion regarding whether to do so. Judge Lamberth previously ruled that Trump ally Carrie Lake had been illegally serving as acting head of the organization and had revoked her decisions, including a round of mass layoffs. The agency had 1,147 employees and 598 contractors working for it. Most of them were at the Voice of America. All contractors and the 1,042 employees were booted from their jobs. For the last year, employees have been getting paid but not allowed to work. But Congress earlier this year approved a bill to fund them for fiscal 26. It trimmed the budget somewhat. So Congress has funded our propaganda outlet, the Voice of America, but not Homeland Security. We have funded an organization meant to influence people abroad, but we're not funding an organization meant to protect Americans from terrorists here at home. This is the Democrats. That's the Democrats. They've funded the Voice of America, but not Homeland Security. That's who they are, folks. That's who they are. That's who they are. What more can I say? They're nasty, evil people, and that's what they do. That's what they do. Garrett says South Africa's borders are a sieve. They are. Extensive water outages happening across bigger Buffalo City Metro. Not surprised. Homeland Security should be supported more, else it will be another South Africa. At least that's the news for today, folks. If you got questions about anything, my favorite color, refugees, feel free to ask them now, okay? No, Heidi, I don't think they're bringing in voters. These are Republicans. They don't want these people in here. It's a failure of the system. Postal service offices closing. Yeah, that story came out earlier this year. Ken's endgame is to become famous, to get a seat on CNN or the former MSNBC, or, hired at a think tank, or, a appointment as a professor at one of the Ivy League schools. That's what his intent is here. Betraying America for personal gain. What else would it be? If he resigned in good conscience, then he would have kept it to himself instead of turning to political spectacle. The arrogance of these people is unbelievable. Well, where's the generation going to come from? Future looks bright. Good question. Wind turbines? Solar panels? Post office bankrupt. Don't know if they have money. No, South Africa post office is bankrupt. Process is often everything to bureaucrats while outcomes are not important. You were correct about that, Peter. Future Looks Bright said, this is just insane. The people you voted to represent, you refuse to vote for the things that the overwhelming number of people actually want. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Commonwealth of Virginia, demon rats in charge, campaigned on affordability, saying that Trump has made the country unaffordable, which is nonsense. Biden made the country unaffordable. Our prices doubled when Biden was president for everything. Everything I pay for now costs nearly twice what it cost before, except for energy. Almost everything. I have to pay $12.28 for a trip to visit Arctic at the airport. $12.28. When I moved here, that was $3. When Biden became president, it was $4.95. Now it's $12.28 because of Joe Biden. Yet they blame Trump for affordability. The Democrats in Virginia campaigned on that, and the suckers in Virginia fell for it. So now that they're in power, they have censored speech, saying they're the arbiters to determine what actually happened on January 6th, and you cannot teach that January 6th wasn't a peaceful gathering of people outside the Capitol building, which it was. It was also people going into the building illicitly. But you can't teach that. That's censorship. They've censored what we teach our kids in school by lying about the history of January 6th. They've just made that a law in Virginia. You can be prosecuted for that. They have also now raised payroll taxes, which everybody pays, not just the rich. In addition to that, now they're trying to take away people's guns. But they want an exemption for members of the legislature saying that their lives are in jeopardy. It'd be so easy here in the parking garage, we're at risk. Americans, especially women, are attacked in parking garages every single day around the country. Every single day, someone in the parking garage is attacked somewhere, especially women, often sexually assaulted and or raped and murdered. Yet these morons in Virginia seek to disarm handguns from lawful citizens. These people need to be tarred and feathered and shamed publicly. I say that figuratively, not literally. They are a disgrace to governance. But this is Democrats. This is what happens when you put them in power. Censorship, taxation, and disarmament. That is their focus. Oh, and the murder of children in the womb. Those are the most important things to these ghouls. Murdering children in the womb, American citizens. They like murdering Americans. They love that. Oh, and I forgot, they also support pro-Islamization of our society. Anything against radical Islam is considered Islamophobia. This is the Democrats. That's who they are. That's what they're all about. They're just like the ANC. They're just like the SPD. They're just like the Labour Party. No different. The same people, just wearing a different wrapper on the outside. All evil bastards who are attempting to undermine Western civilization and succeeding in many fronts. Yep. You've already run out of diesel, Petro. Well, it doesn't surprise me. People said 2 weeks. I said it won't be 2 weeks before you run out of fuel. It'll be sooner. Yep. Red wants to know what the Cuban Missile Crisis is all about. Well, the Soviets sent intercontinental ballistic missiles to Cuba to threaten the United States. Cuba had the plan to launch missiles against the United States, nuclear weapons. And Kennedy took the world to the brink of conflict by putting a blockade around Cuba. A blockade, ladies and gentlemen, is an act of war. We committed an act of war by blocking Soviet ships from bringing weapons into Cuba. Understandably so. But the rash behavior of JFK nearly led to global nuclear Armageddon. The Soviets backed down, thankfully. Otherwise, we would have had a nuclear weapon. I never would have been born. Never would have been born. East Coast would have been irradiated. Yep, so thankfully the Soviets backed down. But Kennedy's rash action, which was dangerous and bold, prevented Cuba from having nuclear weapons. They were all withdrawn after that. Yeah, so that's what the Cuban Missile Crisis is all about. Okay, Cutman's curse. This blue state thing needs to stop. You know, you've got blue state actors in every state. You know, the fine line between a blue state and a red state is very thin in most states. There are exceptions like out west, where states are overwhelmingly left or right, but generally speaking, it's pretty evenly cut. So blue state, red state, that's a myth. That needs to stop. People need to stop talking about that. Alan says Trump is losing. What is Trump losing, Alan? What is he losing? So U.S. and Cuba not good terms. No, U.S. and Cuba haven't been in good terms since the Cuban Revolution in 1959. It predated it. That's why they put nuclear weapons there. Do the chargé d'affaires have to provide their host countries with credentials? Yes, they do. Yes. Could that be a reason why they're not sending back? No, they're not sending an ambassador because I think my analysis, the video I did yesterday, I think the reason not sending an ambassador is because I don't think Ramaphosa is going to appoint an ambassador for the rest of Trump's administration. Don't think he's going to do that. He's losing his mind. Well, some of his statements might lead someone to believe that, Alan. Even before that, right, when Batista was kicked out of Cuba. Yep. Petrotenant told us yesterday diesel price will be more than 28 Rand on the 1st of April. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know you covered this right, but can't find like the Iran war started because diplomacy failed over nuclear weapons. You're correct, Cranberry. That's correct. They were discussing this in Oman, and the Iranians, they let it slip that they had 465 kgs of 60% enriched uranium, and they were unwilling to give it up. The United States offered to give them all the uranium they needed for their civilian nuclear power plants into perpetuity. They refused. And then they boasted they were within 2 weeks of enriching that 400 plus kgs to 90%, which is weapons grade. And therefore they would have had fissile material for 10 nuclear weapons, which they would have launched at Israel, first opportunity they had, and irradiated the Middle East. So yeah, that's why the war started. Batista did run Cuba before Castro, that's correct. You had a 20-year-old who fought with me today because they follow the propaganda rubbish. What did they fight with you about, Cranberry? Basilic says there's only one state, the Orange Free State. Unfortunately, it's no longer called the Orange Free State. This world has gone war happy. I don't know about that, Kali. War has always been a function of human societies. It's never changed. Easier for a criminal to get a gun here than a citizen wanting to protect themselves. State I'm going to, no Dem has won a single county since 1962. Wow, Alan, that sounds interesting. Have you seen DARPA's new X-76 apparently going to build? No, I haven't seen X-76 from DARPA. Let me look that up. Let's see. Speed of a jet, the freedom of a helicopter. Oh, is this a tilt rotor? Well, this is a hell of an engineering feat if they get it pulled off. Oops, that's not what I want. Sprint X-76 enters build phase to demonstrate runway-independent high-speed flight. So it would need a runway to take off. Eliminating one of the battlefield's most difficult choices between a high speed of an aircraft that needs a runway and go anywhere flexibility of a slower helicopter is the goal of DARPA's Speed Runway Independent Technologies program, SPRINT. Sprint's experimental aircraft, officially revealed as the X-76, is now built by Bell Textron, following a successful critical design review. The designation places it within the historic lineage of X-planes that have long served to test the boundaries of aviation, coinciding with the country's 250th anniversary, hence the X-76, a nod to the revolutionary spirit of 1776. Sprint began its second phase in May 2025 following the down select to Bell. With the successful completion of the CDR, the program will shift focus to manufacturing, integration, assembly, and ground testing of the X-76 demonstrator. The demonstrator will mature technologies necessary for transformational combination of the following capabilities: achieve cruise speeds exceeding 400 knots, hover in austere environments, and operate from unprepared surfaces. For too long, the runway has been both an enabler and a tether, granting speed but creating a critical vulnerability, said Commander Ian Higgins, U.S. Navy, who is the manager for the program. With Sprint, we're not just building an X-plane, we're building options. We're working to deliver the option of surprise, the option of rapid deployment, the option of life-saving speed anywhere on the globe without needing any runway. Phase 2 will be followed by a flight test program, which is planned for early 2028. So there you go. Pretty cool. Artist rendition of what it would look like. Interesting. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Jam Jackal has arrived. Well, welcome, Jam Jackal. Why did they call it the Bay of Pigs? Because the Bay of Pigs was not the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Bay of Pigs was an invasion sponsored by the CIA to overthrow the Castro government at the Bay of Pigs, which is what the place is called, presumably because the Spanish ship must have crashed here with a bunch of pigs on it. Anyway, yeah, the Bay of Pigs was a failed invasion, and many of its actors were arrested and in prison. So please have a look at an email I sent with the subject, medical expired. Diane, if your medical is expired, then you'll have to get another one. That's how it works. Well, your medicals expire because they're 6 months old. I'm not sure what to tell you, Diane. I mean, there's no control over this. Okay. All right, so back to where we're at. Sorry about that. Thank you for the news. After you showed us Vakela, I checked on Twitter now because of you, and he's still posting shocking things. He's not a surprise. I heard from the folks with the come on, come on, this stupid thing. Oh my goodness. Where is this at? I had the same problem last night. Why can I not find this? There we go. Okay. Yeah, I heard from him yesterday. They removed his breathing tubes, and still has some pain, but he's doing all right. So for the heart attack, still in Salt Lake, of course. They're going to have the surgery shortly. You're getting close to having the same amount of subs as Morning Shot. Not really, Green Phantom. Not really. Morning Shot has surged ahead of me when I was being shadow banned. I had to restart my channel, and that cost me. I was within 200 subscribers of overtaking Morning Shot back in 2021, early 2021, when my original channel was taken away. Had to start over. And then what took me 5 months to achieve, less than 5 months, took me 4.5 years to achieve. And I finally got to 20,000 in December of 2024, and then picked up 15,000 January 2025 before Trump came in office, and then surged from there. But I've been growing incredibly slowly. My channel is not growing much at all. YouTube is successfully hiding my content, and I see it in the data. 70-80% of the views are from people who are existing viewers. So very few people are being exposed to my videos, which makes for very few opportunities to grow the channel, unless you all can find people and tell them about the channel and show it to them. So if each one of my subscribers found 3 people, we would be up to 500,000 subscribers. Yep. Diane, I've done what I can on your email, in case you're curious. I observe a rough timeline here for us. I'm with you, Patreon, on that one. Big storm on the East Rand tonight. Okay. When do I go over? When I do go over, will I be allowed to pass through the airport with 800 grams? Probably not. You can't bring agricultural products in the country. You're limited what you can bring in the country. So I don't know the answer. You need to go into U.S. Customs and Immigration and look and see what customs will let you bring in the country. I only found your channel because it was shared. How you suggest, Colonel? Exactly, Cranberry, because somebody told you about it. Because YouTube hides my content. I abstained for a while as I was fixated on checking emails in my case. So a bit out of the loop. How's the refugee numbers U.S. looking? Well, there's no update. Malhodmicey. There's no update. We won't have an update until the 5th of April. Every month on the 5th, the numbers come out. I gave the most recent update. I reported on that after they came out on the 5th, and they were a bit tardy. They came out late on the 5th. So let me find that very quickly here. I did that video. So the numbers, there is no way to look at the numbers. They're officially reported once a month. And once we have the information, next month we'll let you know. But remember that for 9 days, nobody came to America because the program was paused. Yep. So this is the video I did on the 5th of March. And I'll do another one on the 5th of April. Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. The time has come for what many refugee aspirants from South Africa wait for each and every month. That is the release of the total of refugees who have arrived in the United States under President Trump's refugee program for South Africans. Now, this comes out the 5th of the month. Today was tardy. Normally, these figures are available earlier in the day, but they didn't come out until late this evening, so we didn't get a chance to update them. But I'm giving you an update for fiscal year 2025, which ended on 30 September, and fiscal year 2026. Please bear in mind that these numbers also include periods where there was no travel. For instance, from the 1st of October until the 17th of November, 16th, there were no arrivals in the United States because the Democrats shut down the government. Again, there were no arrivals from the 18th of December until the 5th of January for Christmas exodus, when about 70 or 75% of government employees take holiday. And then, for some strange reason, which we believe was a pause intended to reset the program because of failures operationally. There were no flights out from the 20th of February until the 9th of March, which is in a few days. So all that in mind, these figures for this fiscal year represent approximately 9 weeks total of travel. Not every day was there a flight, but 9 weeks total. These are the numbers. And let's take a look at what the figures are so far. For fiscal year 2025, there were 335 South African arrivals. Now bear in mind that includes the 59ers who came and arrived on May 12th, and then a gap between those folks and others who began arriving later in the fiscal year. So those 335 do not count against this so-called cap for FY26. That is 7,000 for South Africans at the moment. But as I've mentioned many times in the past, caps often get frequently ignored. For FY 2026, effectively 9 weeks or less of travel, 3,155 South Africans have arrived here. The actual total refugees is 3,158 because 3 Afghans arrived who went to Colorado, which the media fails to tell you about. So the running total so far for FY 25 and 26 is 3,490 South Africans arrived in the United States. Now that figure will grow, and we expect it to grow demonstrably. All you guys have to do is watch my content and you get all the information. I don't know why people think it gets hidden. You just show up on a live stream and ask a question. Is something I spent hours producing a video to explain very clearly. The lady that got shot, I gave an update on that yesterday and the day before. She's doing quite well. She's walking, and they're anticipating leaving now on the in April. So they're expecting to leave in April. And the future looks bright. Says, since the pause, folks are definitely being instructed to be more cagey about their applications. Yes, well, they should have been doing it all along. Yep. Yep. You're welcome. Okay. Mark says the handle is the Mad Hatter Girl. What's the handle, Mark? What are you talking about? I missed something that Mark must have said. Going back. I don't see any comment from Mark. That's out of the blue. History repeating itself. History should be a compulsory subject so we can become better people. Well, yeah, history should be compulsory. Yeah, brandishing a firearm in many states is quite relatively easy in the United States. It's not that hard. Garrett saying not a true helicopter. Well, it's a probably a dual function. You know, you're right. Rotors can't go beyond 600 kilometers, but it won't be flying as a helicopter 600 kilometers. It will slow down, tilt, and then deploy the rotors. You know, so yeah, it will be both. No, I don't eat potato salad. It's disgusting. How do you make potato salad? I don't, Renee. I don't eat any potato salad. I find it quite disgusting. It tastes, ugh, never liked it. Run out of diesel, SCOM fails as well. We won't be able to generate. Yeah, we won't be able to run your generators. That's correct. Well, then you rely on solar power, and let's see how poorly solar is going for me today. It's now afternoon, so the panels which are on the west side of my house, over my head on this side of the house, should be generating electricity. But let's see. Oh, another farm attack. Jacques Burdick says farm attack in Newcastle. Waiting for more information. 1 victim wounded. Jacques Burdick. Okay. Kim Heller, this lunatic, says the ANC has given white people in South Africa far too much. She is a wackadoodle. An absolute wackadoodle, that woman. Yep. Thank you to Radio 702 for having Ambassador Peshka live in the studio. Oh, Ambassador Peshka, the apologist for the ANC. Oh, now Lady Ponder is running her mouth again.
To Israel, South Africa is the primary provider of coal to Israel. South African companies, I should say. We should be careful. It's not the government, it's private sector companies, Glencore and others. They are the leading providers of coal to Israel today. So they're keeping all the machinery in Israel going. We need, again, civil society to speak to NUMSA, to speak.
I think this alien needs to shut her K-hole. She just really needs to shut her cake hole. She's a terrorism supporter, and she needs to shut her cake hole. Nobody wants to hear anything she has to say. Yeah. Derek Harriman says U.S. is currently investigating South Africa under Section 301 of the Trade Act regarding forced labor and discriminating workplaces. Yep. Yep, we know that to be true. On January 12, 2016, when Barack Obama was president, Iran's Republican Revolutionary Guard seized a U.S. Navy boat, released footage showing American sailors humiliated, some kneeling and others in tears before Iranian forces. Yep, I remember that. Yep, I remember that. Yep, here's American sailors. This is Obama, the surrender monkey, coward. Just like the French surrender monkeys. Capturing a U.S. Navy boat. They surrendered, compromised classified equipment, tactics, weapons. The Iranians, this is what they did, humiliated the United States. An act of war in 2016. Obama did nothing about it. Remember that? I remember that. I remember that. Oh, too well. He did it to the Brits as well. And both cowardly leaders ignored what needed to be done because they were cowards. Yep. Indeed. St. Patrick's Day parade in Ireland full of Indians. What the hell is this? What the hell does that have to do with being Irish? Indians. What is this bullshit? That's a St. Patrick's Day parade in Ireland? What the hell is that? St. Patrick's Day parade in Ireland. What the hell is that? Take your Indian shit to India. Not on St. Patrick's Day. Unbelievable. Every law by shit. Oh, okay, I already read that. Okay. The story of St. Patrick's Day parade being a bit different. Yeah, so do I. That's what they're doing here. So they're crapping over your culture by hijacking it. Yep. Yes, they're dressed as Hindu gods for a Catholic holiday. What the fuck's happening in South Africa? In Ireland? It's gone. It's gone. 25% of the people in the country aren't Irish. 1 in 4 people is not Irish. And it's all happened in the last decade. No, it's not Ireland. Ireland is gone. It's cultural theft. It's not appropriation. It's theft. Ireland is gone. England is gone. Wales is on the verge. Scotland still exists, but it's tenuous. Germany is gone. Denmark is in the process of going. Sweden is gone. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, folks. All right, let's wrap it up here. Did you get any feedback from your letter? No, I didn't get any feedback. I don't expect any feedback, Anonymous Angel. They're probably not going to address me. Yep. Do you think big industry is going to Texas as their own independent electricity grid? Who's on their own independent electricity grid? Yeah, Poland is still good. You're welcome, Kathy. And yet they want to say there's no white replacement conspiracy, just conspiracy. Yes, because they're just racists covering the truth up. Yep, and it's all being done. Oh, France has been gone for a long time, Nadine. I was in France for the Rugby World Cup. It's gone. Marseille is the largest North African city. Marseille, largest North African city. Yep. Yeah, a little bit tongue-in-cheek there, but a lot of merit to that story. All right, see you guys. You'll be directed to Ronaldo's stream at the top of the hour. Cheers.